Was good, YouTube. Today we got a special video. One of my friends recommended me a podcast, how to connect with your intuition and focus on your path. How to connect with your intuition and focus on your path. We finna see if she put me on for real. We finna see. She said it was a good podcast. She thought that I would like it, so we all gonna watch it together. I feel like you can really learn a lot from podcasts, and I want y'all to learn with me on this channel. So let's get straight into the video.
And there was this great point you made that I think people wouldn't recognize with the amount of success you've had, the hits you've had. I think people want to know about you and learn about you. But you said, when you come from where I come from and everybody doesn't get those breaks, that luck, you start to question, why am I successful in life? Why did I go this way and everybody went that way? And I just thought that was, again, extremely humble and also representative of where you grew up, how you came up. Like, which way did everyone go, and where did that luck begin for you?
I think coming up in Newark, New Jersey, coming up in that environment, and having, when you're younger, you're living life. You're taking it a day at a time. You're going to basketball practice, you're going to school, you're going to church. For me, it was taking a lot of trips to New York City, going on auditions at a really really young age, and just figuring out what that is. Having parents pretty aware, and very present in my life, growing up. That was rare amongst my family, and amongst my friend group. Having both parents that was there and very present, and aware of my environment as well. Being told to look out for these things and make good choices, to be disciplined, to be focused on things. Get your school. All the positives in growing up in an environment like that. And hats off to my parents and to sacrifice so much to make sure their kids, were safe and grew up grew up in that environment. Ain't easy making ends meet. Grew up very poor, but didn't feel like it. You know what I'm saying? It was very, I think they did a good job at hiding those things. I think as we get older, we look back, it was like, oh man, we went through that. Oh, that's why we slept in the kitchen that one time with the oven open. Or that's when we stayed at grandma's house for like, a couple of weeks when, so you get that reflection of how we kind of grew up. And I think for me, always having a bigger purpose, I think, or just that optimism, that I was a big dreamer as a kid. And I think, you start to not just to focus on just the work of it all, but since I was working such a young age, that's the thing that I can kind of point to of, booking auditions and getting this job and traveling to this place and experiencing these things and coming back home with these experiences and not having a lot of people who could relate or could I could soundboard off of. And I think in feeling like that, you don't want to alienate those people. And I think, and this is all I guess in hindsight, you don't share these stories as much. Maybe you should, because you don't want somebody to feel like inadequate or not being able to have that experience that you might have had. And I think that snowballs as you get older, and from stepping stone to stepping stone, as I continue to be successful at a young age. You start to question, why am I being so successful? And the people that look just like me, that are right next to me in these everyday things, aren't necessarily doing that, or not choosing to, just didn't have those options that were laid out to them. And I think you start to doubt yourself for whatever reason, or feel guilty for the things that you may or may not have. Even though, our parents were people of service, block parties, or cooking church dinners, or whenever, my house was the house that everybody came to at some point, whether we were going to get pizza that night or dad was going to take everybody camping or going to these things. Like, that was kind of my house within my neighborhood and community. And so I think for me, being a person of service, kind of, because it kind of comes from how I was raised, and those are the examples that I knew growing up. I always felt lucky too. As you become more successful, and you see less people look like you that are being successful in this realm, and you end up being the one guy that looks like me that's successful, or the couple guys that, or the usual suspects that you see in the audition room, or and things of that nature. You start to sometimes question, why you. Now I feel as though it.
He's probably putting in 10 times what the next dude that looks like him talk like him, from the same neighborhood as him, he's putting in way more work and effort and getting himself out there and wanting to chase his dreams. You feel me? Like it's easy for somebody to be able to it's easy to have another person who can do exactly what you do but not put in the same work and won't get the same results. That's all it is. Like you may have the skill set, the characteristics, the charisma, the look to be a celebrity, to be somebody famous for whatever it is that you want to do. But are you putting in the work to do what you want to do?
It was my path. You know, it was my purpose and spirituality, and growing up in a household that was very focused on, church and spiritual and
And then another thing, I understand he's saying some people don't get the opportunity to chase their dreams. Like they don't get the opportunity. Like they may not have enough money to get the equipment to go out and do what they want to do. They may not have the ability to go to school and do what they want to do. But I feel like even if they knew they had the talent to do what it was they wanted to do, or you meet the requirements or you surpass the requirements for what it is that you want to do, you gotta like you gotta like find a way, like regardless of if it wasn't the same way he did, whatever it was that he did to get to this level of success that he had. If you really wanted it that bad, you would find a way. You would find a way to get to the point you want to reach.
meditation and just being aware of the world that we live in. I felt I was destined for something, not
Wow.
knowing what that was, but just something.
Wow. Yeah. And I mean, when I'm hearing that, it sounds like I love what you said. You were like, they hid we were poor and we didn't even see that. But this idea of
Mm-hmm.
like you sound so when I see you talk about your family, and for those of you watching, you can see it on Mike's face, but there's so much joy and there's bliss and there's like a happiness when you're looking back on that time. Like I can see it's a positive experience because of how you feel you've been loved and cared
Mm-hmm.
for and supported, even though the resources may not have been there or the access or opportunities. And I was wondering when I was listening to you, like, is there a memory or an experience from your childhood that you think defines who you are today? Like, was there a memory or a story that you have in your mind of an experience you went through that you think brings out maybe that service element or brings out that purposeful element?
And I think this bliss and this appreciation for how I grew up comes in hindsight.
Mm-hmm.
The first time you have a moment where you're like, pick up the phone, one morning, you just call your mom and be like, thank you. I get it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for being that kid
I
at
made
some
that call.
point, and I'm so sorry for not understanding. I totally get what you guys are going through. Sheesh. I love you guys, like you have those moments when you get older, that you just can't really have that perspective when you were a kid. And I think, I was very mischievous, as well. And I think there were moments when my dad disciplined me, for whatever I did at that time. And then my mom would have a conversation with me around the why. And then being also forced or pushed and nudged into a space where you had to acknowledge your siblings also, in that situation, and the importance of family and what that means. My parents have different upbringings, you know what I'm saying, from, and different family structures growing up. But one thing they've always provided us with is just a sense of like family over everything, and how important that is. And that just kind of kept the groundedness to me throughout. So I think just the experiences of just family.
I like your point about hindsight. I've definitely made that call to my mom for
Right?
sure. Like, yeah, I've
Yeah.
made that call to my mom. And we were around the same age. So for me, it's like I've made that call. And I think I made it probably like 25, maybe
25?
26.
Okay,
Yeah, it was
okay,
probably
okay.
around then when I finally made that call. And not that I didn't love my mom before that, of course I
Yeah.
did, but it was like that honest understanding of just how hard it was to do what she did. Because she was raising two kids, she was dropping us to school, picking us up, she was the breadwinner of the family. She made us breakfast, lunch, and dinner fresh every day. Like, and you don't recognize that as a kid. You don't realize the sacrifice, the hustle, and and always making you feel loved on top of doing all of that.
Correct.
It's hard work. You said that now you feel like you've got to a place that it's your path.
Mm.
What was that switch for you that went from like, I don't deserve this, God, like I feel out of place, I'm lucky, to being like, no, actually now I see it as this was meant to be my path? Because I think a lot of people, and a lot of our listeners will be there. Like a lot of people are like, they're making moves and maybe they're the first person in their family to go to college, or maybe they're the first person who started up a business and is an entrepreneur, or maybe one of our listeners is trying to break generational trauma and they're the first person to spot it.
Yes.
But then they all live in that space of like, can I do this? Like, am I the one to do this? And so what was it that made that switch from like, I'm not sure I'm the guy, but oh, it is my path?
It's the sum of all things leading up into that point. I think it's all the doubt. It's the imposter syndrome. It's the blessings that you can't really accept fully. And you listen to other people speak who are successful, or you see examples that you kind of feel connected to, like, man, that kind of feels like me. Or what he just said or what she just said, I resonate with that. You know, I feel like that sometimes, you know. Other people who are looking at you saying, no, Mike, this is what you have, this is what you can be, this is what you are. Nah, that can't, no, that's too good, no, that ain't me, you know. Your own presence in a situation where you have to step back and look at yourself and be like, am I this guy right now? Like, oh man, there's a room full of people who showed up because of something I'm doing, and they're in service or in support of my idea, my thing. Okay, that looks and feels like I'm the guy. Okay, I'm in the industry where, you know, the success of your work and your art has been, you know, dictated and validated by other people's opinions. And whether those opinions are factual or projected on you from their own individual perspective, I think it was a combination of all those things. And I've always been curious and walked towards the, how do I make myself better? What are the things that I need, the tools that I need in order to improve myself, the way I think, how do I maximize myself, you know? So from, I think, getting an executive coach.
Dude, and I feel like this may or may not even be tied into this, but I feel like no matter how much, like, no matter what good happens, yes, I'm grateful for it. Yes, I'm appreciative of it, but I want more. Like, I feel like when you know the potential of what you could be, and when, like he said, when you see other celebrities like do things and you like, I can do that. Or like you see people who are in places that are higher than where you at right now, and they're giving bare minimum effort or energy and something that you know that you give your all in, is like that gives you all the drive to want to get there. And it's like, hold on.
Myself better. What are the things?
Yes. Okay, so it's like there's never I'm never satisfied with just good, with just great. I need exceptional. I need like the best. Like you gotta strive to be the best. I feel like if you just striving to just do good in something that you're really passionate about, why do it at all? Why waste your time just doing something just for it to be good when you can be great and be one of the best and be known for it and get acknowledgement from it? Like that make you feel good. Cause you put so much time and effort in something that you knew all along. People may not have believed in what you thought that you was gonna do, but the fact that you went out and did it, like that's the real, that's the real thing.
that I need, the tools that I need in order to improve myself, the way I think, how do I
Like you always feel like I always feel like I can do better. I can do better than what I did in that. Oh, I did that was like I did some art that it wasn't all that. It may look good, but I want to go for great. I can see the imperfections. I can see the flaws in what I did. I can see the flaws in the content that I make. So I may put out a video and I don't really like it, but I know I gotta put it out so I can grow and learn from it to make it better. I may post a video and everybody think it's the best video I ever made. But me deep down I know I haven't did anything yet. Like I'm just now getting started. Like I haven't like he said, I'm still trying to get the tools to get to I'm still trying to get the tools I need to be able to build myself to the point that I want to be at, you know?
maximize
Mhm.
myself, you know? So from I think getting an executive coach, who talks to executives all day and how to create healthy conversations, the right type of conversations to have as you're building a team around you, because as you know, it's not just us.
Mhm.
We have an entire team of people that surround us that help us achieve our dreams and get the big idea done. A spiritual advisor, a spiritual coach that I have, who helps me do my energy work, my
Mhm.
spiritual work, and help sift through the noise and,
Mhm.
and and find those things. And I think it wasn't until I had roles that challenged my spirit and myself in a real way that in the weight and where the attention was so loud that it was deafening, and it was and I couldn't see clearly.
Mm.
And these are champagne problems. You know what I'm saying? That, like, we're blessed.
Mm.
So, but the weight is so heavy,
Mhm.
and people sometimes think and they see what we have or what are what we're doing, and it's like, oh, just be grateful,
Mhm.
or just what are you complaining about,
Mhm.
and most people wouldn't be able to walk a block in our shoes,
Mhm.
with this stuff. And I think it was, and then you have moments where you resent things and you're angry at, the feelings that you accumulate for not being clear or not understanding, why there's a lot of whys and you're not going to get all the answers, but you want to, be able to get to a place where you're clear. So to answer your question, when did I decide, when did I when did I feel like that? Maybe 2 years ago,
Mm.
maybe a year ago. You look at where your family has come from, and shit, look at your bloodline. You look at your community. You're like, man, there's a cycle there
Mm.
from generation to generation that happens.
Mhm.
When you get to yourself, you're like, man, can I stop this? Can I change this?
Mm.
I could do this.
Mm.
It's like once you know better, you got to almost do better. Once you see
Mm.
it, you can't unsee it.
Mm.
And I refuse to ignore it. I
Mhm.
refuse to see it an opportunity that I had to
Mm.
change things and act like it didn't exist.
Mm.
And I think that was the thing
Mm.
for me, that I was like, nah, I gotta, if that's my purpose, if that's my path, is to just see it and I can see the pieces. And if I can just continue to do this, or if I stay down the pathway on that, and I, I might be able to make a big difference
Mm.
in my nephew's life or my future children's, my future grandchildren's life, I got to do that,
Mm.
because been so many people that didn't that it wasn't the perfect storm for them to have that opportunity. It wasn't the right time in the world. Technology wasn't there. The resources, the right social conversations are being had for us to have these platforms and speak and be successful the way we are. You gotta do it. And I think that was a big part of it, understanding my own mortality,
Mm.
and understanding, that life isn't a forever thing. And I think that happens when you get older too. You know what I'm saying? Like, just turned 37. And it's like, wow, I vividly remember, 15. I vividly remember 21. Vividly remember 25, 30, and I used to look at 35 37,
That's
like
old.
ancient, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, oh man, we're here. And it's like, you got to do what you got to do while you're here and make an impact. You got to fulfill yourself, whatever that may be, you know? And I think so, yeah, so that moment for me where it was like, okay, I can do this. I can, maybe a couple years ago, I think it was like right as I was stepping into directing Creed 3, and the weight of that, and being the captain of the ship the first time, being captain of the ship in a, I've made movies before, I've done that. I know what that's like, but I've never ever been the director, the captain of the ship. And I think that responsibility, that pressure, that, I'm not a dad, but being able, everybody's looking to you for the answer, for the solve, for the leadership. And I think that really thrust me into a mindset of leadership that I never quite had the opportunity to do before.
I mean, there's so much in that.
Sorry, I said a lot.
It's a great.
Yeah.
I like it. I prefer it that way because I'm connecting all the dots as you're speaking, and there's so many things I want to unpack with that. One of the things that really resonated is this idea that you had to challenge yourself. You had to do something out of your comfort zone in order to even recognize that you could become, that you could be, and that you could develop. And often we're waiting to become before we take on the challenge, but it's the challenge that makes us become that person. And I think we resist even what you said earlier about the opportunities, this idea that if you have opportunity, and there's an Eastern spiritual teaching which talks about if you have opportunities and you don't take them, that's a disservice to humanity because
1000%.
they're opening up to you even without your will sometimes, right? Like there's some of us, and we'll sabotage ourselves because we'll say, oh, well, I didn't ask for that. I didn't know that.
Exactly. I found myself just watching YouTube, like probably like a couple years back. I was just watching. I was like, this is stuff that I can do. That to me was like, I got to do something about this. Like I had the opportunity and I seized the moment. I was like, any way that I can possibly create content and draw it all into one community, like that's what I want. Like you feel like you have an opportunity to be the greatest. You could be the best at whatever it is you think you could be the best at. You got to take that opportunity and run with it. You got to run that way. You got to go. You may have to put and you can turn and go this way and that way just to end up over there. Anything may happen. Like adversity will strike. But what you gonna do? You gotta go. You gotta take that moment. And I'm telling you, run. Like your name is Forrest Gump.
For me. And so I love the idea of anyone who's listening or watching what Mike's saying. I love the idea of leaning into that opportunity that is opening up for you. And even if you don't have the skills and you don't have the talent yet, or you don't have all of the tools and the abilities, it's going to force you to develop them.
For sure.
And you talking about the coach.
Exact. You're gonna develop those skills because while you chasing that opportunity, you running into people who've already established themselves. You running into these people who are already great. And that greatness just gonna rub off on you. You bump into somebody with some greatness, you got some greatness on your shoulder. You bump into the next person who got some greatness. Oh, what's on this one too? All of a sudden, you in a mosh pit, and there's nothing but great people all around you, and all that greatness is rubbing off on you, and now you just got a bunch of greatness just all over you. And what that make you? That's only pieces that make you who you are. That's only the little pieces that make you into who you are. Go be great.
Coaching, I want to go back to that and ask you about that because you want to be better mentally, physically, spiritually. It's a big part of who you are, and even the projects you take on, which I want to dive into. That you said roles that challenge your spirit. Even that idea that you're looking at a role not as, oh, what's the next movie to get me the thing? It's like, oh, that's going to challenge my spirit. I wanted to ask, what has been your best habit or tool uniquely that you've developed for your body, your mind, and your spirit individually? What have been things that you've done with your coaches in different areas that you think has brought about new epiphanies, opportunities, and ideas? What have been those tools and hacks that maybe people could lock into as well?
I think there's this woman, Ramona Oliver, that I've known me my entire life. You know, she's my spiritual advisor and coach, and you know, I think starting the day, you know, in meditation, you know, you taking a moment to clear yourself and prepare yourself for the day. It's so important
Huge.
to step out of your home with intent and intention. A lot of times, it's what are you projecting on a situation to help it manifest instead of negatively thinking about things that can help block your blessings.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's a
Mm-hmm.
big thing, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So I think and we all have moments of negativity. That's part of it. You know, it's yin and yang. You're never gonna fully get rid of that. But to practice those things in the morning, I think was a big help for me.
Yeah, huge.
You know, you shoot movies and you're doing things, you're walking out, you know, there's you hear stories of people but they just can't get a break sometimes. And for whatever reason, it could be from stepping off the curb, twisting the ankle, to, you know, the parking ticket, to the thing, to the, oh, I just can't get a break. And there's certain people that carry this cloud, you know, and I think some of that can be contributed to the thought process and the
Mm-hmm.
thinking and the energy that you're putting into these things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sometimes easier said than done, but to stop and to reframe and to clear yourself and to, you know, no, I'm walking in this light today,
Mm.
and see how much of a difference that can make.
Mm-hmm.
And more on the structurally side, this guy Drew Kugler, who no relation to Ryan Coogler, like that, who was a you know, an executive coach, and you know, as my ambitions grew from production company to brand marketing consulting companies to, you know, just
Before we get into this, I'm gonna have to start doing that meditation that he was talking about. You step outside with like a clouded mind, like where you got a lot going on, and it may be blocking your spirit, your thought process, whatever it is. It's blocking something from getting you to where you need to be because your mind isn't clear. And sometimes I be going out and I be thinking about so much, thinking about I gotta get this done, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, I gotta do that, but I don't never just chill. I ain't gonna lie, that might work. It's
the
it's
products
clicking.
and the businesses, you know, the conversations I need to have with the team, you
Mm.
know, and leadership, and the everybody's coming from different backgrounds, and how do you speak everybody's love language? Because
Mm-hmm.
everybody, you have to speak differently a little bit to everybody
Yeah,
so they
yeah.
can receive it the way you meant it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah,
and I think
but that's crazy because even my friends be talking about that too. We be having conversations about that, like how you gotta speak differently to different people because everybody don't receive information the same. Everybody love language ain't the same. Like even with your friends, your family, you can't talk to everybody like say you talk to your one friend and you always joking around and you being sarcastic and it's like low key kind of like disrespectful. You can't talk like that to everybody. As well as like even let's put it like this. Let's say past relationships. Say you was one person they loved and you did this, that, and the third. You can't go to it's like say you move on, say that didn't go good. You can't come to this relationship, and do the exact same thing and think you're gonna be successful. Think it's gonna be healthy. That was for this person. That can't. You gotta treat different people different ways, and you gotta learn and soak up enough knowledge of the person or the people that you're around to understand how you can treat them better based off of the way that they receive information. I understand that.
having the quality of conversations is something that was really helpful for me,
Mm.
meaningful conversations, and giving people the space to hear me and also hold them accountable
Mm.
to the things that I need to hold them accountable for.
Mm.
I think though the combination of the two allowed me to look at situations and opportunities differently, for people to look at me differently.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's also a troubling thing when you're walking around as talent for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they see
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah, you have
and
an identity.
have an identity. That's what they're, so there's these kid gloves that come along with that. You know what I'm saying? That
Yeah.
is, it's not everybody's fault. That's everybody's in a role. You have to sometimes just step back and look at the thing that we're in. Like we're in an industry, that has generations and generations of
Mm.
taught behavior and practices that any positive disruptor has to understand those things in order to disrupt them in a way.
Absolutely.
And evolve them,
Yeah.
and things are evolving. You see it, things are evolving in a way, and if you can look at it in a higher way, I think you can find your way through that.
Yeah, that resonates. You remind me of this beautiful statement from Mark Twain where he said that history never repeats itself, but it always rhymes. And I find like when you were talking about the
A lot of people like to say history repeats itself, but I'm understanding what he's saying when he said it rhymes. People may think that it's the same, but it's not. It's not quite the same. It's just
industry,
similar. It's rhyming.
I was thinking about how if you don't study history, you have the rhyme happening in your life, but then you can't interrupt the pattern. So if you were a young star, which you were, like I love The Wire as well. I've been a fan of the show. It's like, so you start in this industry early, and then you could spend years trying to figure out why you still have the kid gloves on.
Yeah.
Because you haven't studied that, wait a minute, that's what happens, that unless you disrupt the pattern, present yourself differently,
Correct.
show more of yourself, people are always going to say, he's talent, he's an actor, that's what he does. As opposed to, oh, he's a director, oh, he's an entrepreneur, oh, he's an investor, right? I know you have lots of investments, all again in the health and wellness space, like
Correct.
sports teams, and we're talking about Moss as well. So
Exactly. Like you gotta do research. That's another thing. Do research in the field you were looking to pursue. Like before I started taking this YouTube stuff serious, I didn't just start recording and filming, shooting videos without going and watching podcasts of all of these YouTubers and interviews of these YouTubers who are successful and figuring out what it is that worked for them, what didn't work for them. What things should people nowadays be doing on social media and ways to push yourself out there and get your face out there and marketing and branding yourself and getting yourself into a situation to where you can be as big as you want to be. But it's gonna take time though. I'm willing to take that time.
it's interesting how much, if you don't study the history of
A lot of people jump into things that they want to do. Like it's tying into this. It's tying into this the part where they talked about the opportunities. I feel like because people here say take the opportunity, but you can't take I mean, you take the opportunity, go out, push yourself out there, do what you want to do with the opportunity. But while you're working towards your craft or whatever it is you want to do research and learn from others that are doing the same thing you're doing, and even the elders who already did what you was doing a while back. So you can take a little bit of pieces of that, just soak it all up like a sponge, and just like you learn from everybody. Like that's the best way to do
our
it.
industry, we get locked in the identity of the role we've played in that space
Correct.
forever.
Correct.
And it's so easy for us to get used to feeling, and often we do it to ourselves because it's comfortable playing the same role. And there's a familiar feeling of when I play this role. And I felt that in my own small way, like when I went from having to create content to get my message out there, even though I wanted to do TV or film or whatever and couldn't get a break. And so I went to content. And then I launched a podcast, and I told you about why we launched this podcast earlier. And then I wrote books, and it was like every time it was like, oh, we thought Jay was this, but oh, he's actually and I've had to go through that, and I've realized the hardest part is you letting go of that identity
and reinventing yourself
and allowing yourself, right?
no, definitely. Like, I mean, have you ever has the podcast been something you always wanted to do? And this is me just curious, or is it something that you had to you forced yourself to reinvent yourself in a way, because this isn't it for you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I know it's not. You know that this is a stop for you. This is a chapter in your book. Did you ever think I have to reinvent myself, or was that a product of the things that were telling you no, or the things that was challenging?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's a mix of them all, but the thing that kind of like supersedes all of them, which I try and tap into, which I think
Mm,
you'll resonate with because I think that's the conversation we're having, is having a connection with your intuition.
mm,
Like for me, it's
mm.
I'm not looking at like, oh, what's the next trend? Or like, how do I disrupt myself? Because to me, those things are still following other patterns.
Got you.
Whereas it's intuitively going like, what is the thing that I bring, or what do I want to do, or what is the the missing piece of the puzzle
Mm,
that I believe I have a unique qualification to fill.
got you.
Because if I'm always looking around, there will always be a million things. Like I always say to people, if you go to a real estate conference, you'll realize you don't invest enough in real estate.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
if you go to a cryptocurrency conference, you'll feel like, oh crap, I didn't do this. And
Yes.
if I sit with a group of actors, I'll be like, oh man, I should have started. Like you're always gonna feel the deficiency
True.
of the trend that you study.
Well, I understand this a lot. Bro, think about it. It's like TikTok. Whoever the biggest creators are, think of the biggest creators that you know on a social media platform. They come out with a trend or idea that's this big idea, upload it, and all these small creators come in, pick off of it, and they recreate it. Why not be the one who comes up with the idea? I see what he's saying when you don't follow the trends. Be the trend. Be what they take from you. Be the one who has the idea so big that everybody wants to be like you. So what so I feel like that's what I gotta figure out. What can I bring to the table of creativity? I'm gonna have people spin off ideas from me. Take what I got and make I'm gonna write that down.
Correct.
And so if you live that way around, it gets really complicated because then you're like, well, do I do this or do I do that? Like, whereas when you go inward, it's
Mm,
like, oh, I feel alignment
yes.
with this right now
Yes.
because it lets me express myself, it lets me connect with people in a certain way. I feel I'm at the right evolution in my journey where it can manifest, as opposed to like, oh yeah, let me just figure out what the next big thing is. Which
Correct.
if
It
that
makes
So I'm gonna say, what do you bring to the table of creativity and how are you going to get others? Not even say that. What do you bring to the table of creativity?
yeah
so much sense, bro. And
yeah
I
yeah
think that's what it is like your alignment with where you feel truthful,
yeah
and sometimes that always doesn't mean you're going to be financially okay as
totally.
well. You know, like you can feel spiritually aligned and everything, and mortgages due.
Yeah.
Rent is due. You feel me? So there's that element of it as well that you
Yes.
have to find your way through. Yeah, that intuition, that North Star is what is something that has led me all types of places
Mm.
that I wouldn't trade in for the world. Just that feeling of this feels right.
Yeah.
And I know doesn't make sense. There's probably some other things on paper that seems like the better option or choice, but this feels right. And
Yeah.
and more often than not, it's been the right move.
Yeah. I love what you were saying earlier about how the thought process is such a powerful way of breaking out over the cloud over your head.
Mm,
And I think we all have moments where the cloud feels like it's never moving
hmm
and it's constantly raining on you. And I think a lot of people who are listening may feel that way. Like, have you ever been in that place? And what has helped with your thought process as you've been tuning that? What's worked for you at least?
that's your moment. That's your moment. It's not that all is lost. When you're feeling the most trapped and down and nothing can't go right, I feel like those are the moments that define you.
Mm.
Those character canon moments that are like, what am I going to do now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do you respond to that? And thinking
It's
your
that
way,
adversity.
feeling your way, working your way through those things. On the other side, it's like, I don't know who said the saying, but like usually, you're the closest to getting what you want is always the hardest. It's always the feeling when you're getting ready to, people give up right before they get what they've always wanted to get. People quit and they give up. And I will not be the person who quit before I got what I wanted or what I needed or what I felt I was supposed to have, Like,
Because they get a little taste of success and think this is all it'll ever be. No. You was just at the threshold. Once you broke past that, if you would have kept just going, you would have broke through that floor and all this success, all this money, riches, generational wealth. Like I keep saying that, but like not even just that, like everything that you wanted to be, you're talking about you will be more than that. You will be something that you didn't think you was gonna be. You will be more than what you thought you was just gonna be.
Like, and if that wasn't for me, it wasn't for me. I'm gonna keep grinding. I'm gonna keep knocking on the door until I get what I feel. That's been something I've always felt since having the name Michael Jordan and understanding that there's another guy out there named Michael Jordan that was the best ever to do something. And being teased and picked on about that and made me for a moment not wanting to play sports. But then it was like, nah, I'm actually gonna make sure I'm gonna compete. At least I'm gonna compete. You're gonna at least see me. I'm gonna be somebody that it's not gonna be, oh, his name is this. It's gonna be, oh no, but he can play. Or oh no, he can, oh, he has something about him, something that is formidable, that is above average, that is unique to him and it gave me a healthy chip, So and for the people who are listening, who do have, that doesn't feel like they can change their circumstances with the way they think or they feel, just hold on, just endure. Look at things differently. Challenge yourself to look at things as the glass half full. Challenge yourself to think 4 steps ahead, think your way through it. Like now we have so many tools, we have so much information. It's a lot of misinformation out there, but there's so much information to be curious. Find something that does resonate with you, even if it's not in the world that you ever thought you would be in.
Yeah.
Find something that you align with, and because everybody aligns with something. That's not an excuse I'm willing to take from anybody. Align with something and find your positivity, find your intuition within that thing, and be obsessed about it.
What have you been obsessed with lately? Like, what would you say is the thing you're most obsessed with right now, or that you have been in the past couple of years that has kind of just
Man,
attracted and
I've been obsessed with getting my team right. I've been obsessed with getting the right personnel on the right brain frequency and getting everybody on the same page to accomplish these things that we need to go accomplish, because I truly believe it's going to be better for everyone. I think it's really going to make an impact. And so there's a obsessiveness that you got to have to over communicate, to follow up, to be redundant, to be consistent, that you need. And I'm obsessed about it, strengthening my family. I'm obsessed over it, to lead by example, and break generational trauma and curses. I'm obsessed over it. And I'm obsessed over every project that I lend myself to. So this next movie that me and Ryan's doing, I'm literally, I'm growing all my stuff out, you know what I mean? My hair and stuff out now. I'm becoming obsessed with it, and that character. And it's an addictive feeling to have a thought and see it come to fruition, to create something from an idea.
Yeah.
And to be persistent and to see it and to manifest it, manifestation. I just love it. You know what I mean? It's cool. So that's something that I've been really, really locked in with. And I think it's also something that is going to help people. There's always I don't want anything that's not multi-hyphenate.
Mm-hmm.
I want anything that I'm involved in. It has to have layers to it. How do you help? How do you educate? What's the leave behind?
Mm-hmm.
What blueprint am I leaving for the next generation? I got a nephew now, that is looking up at me constantly. Yes, because of height, but also because of the example. And he's mimicking everything I do. He's mimicking anything. I can say something, do something, I can sit a certain type of way. Oh, snap, he's doing it too. It's crazy. So it clarifies your intention when you do things because you want it to have, purpose and intention, So those are the things. And I'm obsessed with being the best version of myself. And that's a daily thing, and some days are better than others. Finding myself in a world where there's so many seen opinions about yourself, when everybody's telling you who and what you are, learning how to live, growing up in it, and it's so wild. I've been doing this for 25 years straight, and that's a wild thing to think about. But man, more than half of my life has been my identity was been through the work that I've been doing, and growing up with social media, what didn't exist, now it does. At a point where I'm old enough to understand what that can do. So I'm obsessed with finding myself now, after and not having to prove anything to anybody other than myself and my family, but really myself, and realizing that is enough. You know what I'm saying? Like that, like giving your best is enough. And sometimes we lose track of that, and yeah. So for anybody out there, you're enough, man.
Absolutely. Let's toast to that.
Just toast to
Come
that.
on,
Yeah.
All right.
All right, you guys. Right now, I'd say we're probably around like the halfway mark in the podcast. So I don't want it to go too long. I don't want to stress it for too much. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut it off right here, and then I'm gonna react to the second half, and it's gonna be in a part two. So y'all go ahead and stay tuned. Tune into my part two. Um, so far I'm enjoying it. So far I'm enjoying it. It's a great podcast. I feel like you can learn a lot of things from what he has to say. He dropping a couple gems in there. You feel me? Y'all stay tuned. I'll catch y'all in the next one.